Yes, Priyanka, how are you?
Good, Salman.
Yes, I'm also good. Okay, let's just start the class like we're already 10 minutes late. Okay. So today we are having a bridge course for you. All right. Just let me get a confirmation. One more student is supposed to be joining. Can I just give me 1 minute? Fatima. Okay, Priyanka. Let's start the class. So what we're going to do, the things which we have learned in the seventh grade, we will try to sum it up in today's class. Okay, now the basic things which we have discussed, our objective would be to sum it up in today's class. All right. Now in the seventh grade, yeah, in the seventh grade we have learned various things. Like we did learn about nutrition in plants and nutrition in animals. There we have learned that we have such organisms that can prepare their own food. They are the green plants whom we call as autotrophs. Now they can prepare their own food via photosynthesis. This is something which we have learned. Then we have the heterotrophic organisms. In the case of heterotrophic organisms, they don't have the mechanism to prepare their own food. They cannot photosynthesize to prepare their own food. Hence, they depend on other organisms for food. So thereby they were called as heterotrophic organisms, right? They have a heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Particularly about the green plants, we learned that they can perform photosynthesis, and this is the equation for the photosynthesis, right? They take in carbon dioxide, they take in water, and combine it to form glucose and give out oxygen gas. So this is something which we learned there, right? Now, and we learned about the chlorophyll also, that it's the green pigment which is essential for photosynthesis, right? Then we also have learned about in the chapter nutrition in plants that there are some heterotrophic plants also, right? Some plants, types of plants are considered as heterotrophic. Like for example, parasitic plants were there. Remember the example of cascata? It's a parasitic plant, right? So they were parasitic plant also that will be living on the body of some other plant and will be obtaining nutrition from it. Then we have saprophytes also. For example, mushroom. It's example of saprophytic plant. So there was the mode of saprophytic saprophytic nutrition was also there. Then we have examples of lichens that shows a symbiotic mode of nutrition. Symbiotic type of nutrition is shown by them where they live together, where alga and fungi lives together to survive. So we learned about that. Okay. Then further we did learn about the human digestive system also in nutrition in animals particularly, where what we learned that it is made up of different parts like mouth, esophagus, that is the food pipe, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, anus. All of these together makes up the alimentary canal. So the food that we eat goes through different parts of the alimentary canal and it gets broken down into very simpler substances. Looks like you're having a network issue. Yes, Priyanka. Seems like you're having a network issue today. Okay. So in
Yes,
nutrition in
Salman.
animals, we have learned that it is completed into different stages, into different steps. First is ingestion, where we take in the food, then we digest that food, then we absorb the digested food. Okay. And then
Then
it is excreted out of the body, that is egestion. Getting it now? So now the
Sir,
question is, yes,
your screen is not visible.
it is not visible. Actually, I am sharing my screen, but due to the network issue, I think my screen is not being visible to you. If I turn my camera off, maybe less data will be utilized and you can see it. Now can you see the screen?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm resharing it. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Priyanka, I'm going to keep my camera off. Okay, now so that your less data will be utilized. All right, since your network
Okay,
issue,
sir.
this network issue. So we learned that in the case of animals, nutrition is completed into these steps. Basically, ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and then agitation or excretion. Right. Then we have learned that the digestive system in human is made up of basically the alimentary canal, which contains mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then the anus. Also, we have learned that there are different special substances secreted called as enzymes. Their function is to help in breaking down the food. They help in breaking down the food. We have learned about them. We also have learned about ruminants. Remember, we learned about the ruminants like animals like cow or the buffalo that chews the cud. No, they will be chewing the cud. They have a four-chambered stomach, right now. So once they have eaten the grass or the leaves, they will re-chew it. Okay. We also learned that in the large and the small intestine, there are finger-like structures called as villi that helps in absorption of the digested food. So these things we have learned in this class, in this chapter particularly. Then we had the chapter respiration in organisms, right? In respiration in organisms, we have learned that the food that is taken in by the organisms, okay, na, it is broken down to obtain energy. It is broken down to obtain energy. So what is happening over here? Let us understand. In the process of photosynthesis, plants takes raw materials like carbon dioxide, water, energy from the sunlight, okay, and they also need chlorophyll to perform all this process. So thereby they prepare glucose. Glucose is what? It's basically the food that the plant prepares in the process of photosynthesis. Then we eat the food, no? We eat the vegetables, fruits, grains, right? And when we consume that food, it is broken down with the help of oxygen in our body, and then carbon dioxide, water, and energy is given out. So that is basically respiration, right? Got it now. So we have learned about this. Then there are two types of respiration, particularly. One is the aerobic respiration, where oxygen is used to break down the food and it gives more energy. Another was the anaerobic respiration, where food is broken down without the oxygen and it gives less energy and also produces lactic acid. Particularly in the case of human, it produces lactic acid. And when the same anaerobic respiration is done by the yeast, so thereby it converts the glucose into alcohol. We learned about such things. Particularly about the human respiratory system, we have learned that it consists of the nasal cavity, right? This nasal cavity, then the trachea, bronchi, lungs. These makes up the human respiratory system. Yes, Priyanka, tell me.
Sir, are we recapping what we learned in 7?
Yeah, basically we are recapping what we have learned.
Okay, sir.
Mhm. So that makes up the respiratory system. So the air that we inhale, it first goes into the nasal cavity. Okay, now the nostril, that basically canal like a structure. Okay, now that nostril basically further opens into nasal cavity in our face. Then further it opens into trachea and then bronchi and finally enters the lungs. Okay, and we have learned that how do we inhale the air? When we inhale the air, the chest cavity becomes bigger, the diaphragm moves down, so we inhale the air. When we have to exhale out the air, the rib cage becomes shorter, the chest cavity becomes shorter, the diaphragm moves up, and then we exhale the carbon dioxide rich air. And where is all this gases exchange occurring? So they are occurring in the balloon-like structures in our lungs called as alveoli. So the oxygen gas which we are taking in, that is O2, it goes into the alveoli, right? And from the rest of the body, carbon dioxide gas reaches the alveoli. So that is the gases exchange which happens there. So we have learned about respiration, and we also have learned about application of the anaerobic respiration, right? When anaerobic respiration is done by the yeast, so that is used in the baking industry, in the manufacturing of alcohol, it is used. So in the alcohol and baking industry, it is used. Then we did learn about the chapter transportation in plants and animals. We learned that why transportation of different substances like food, oxygen, water, carbon dioxide is essential in the body of plants and animals. In the case of animals, we have learned that heart pumps the blood through arteries and the veins. Arteries carries the oxygenated blood while veins carries the impure blood or deoxygenated blood. Blood has various components in it, like it has red blood cells. Red blood cells contains hemoglobin. White blood cells provides immunity. Right now, we learned about the platelet. Right, we learned about the plasma in this. So these things we have learned in the transportation in plants and animals particularly. In animals particularly, we also learned how the human heart functions. How many chambers are there in the human heart, Springer? How many chambers are there in the human hearts?
Hmm.
Name them.
So ventricle,
Hmm?
article,
Ventricles and atriums.
yes,
Hmm. What is the total number of chamber?
four,
Four chambers are there, no? There are in total four chambers in the human heart. Getting it? The upper chambers, like let's say I have drawn a rough diagram of the human heart, suppose. The upper chambers, these two are called as atrium, no?
atrium,
And the lower chambers were called as
ventricle,
ventricles. This is the right atrium, this is the left atrium. This is the right ventricle, and this is the left ventricle.
left,
Okay. Now we
yes,
know
sir.
that generally arteries carries the oxygenated blood. But what about the pulmonary artery? Pulmonary artery, what does it carry? It carries the deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. Now, the pulmonary artery, it carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs, isn't it? So we learned about the special case. We also learned about the pulmonary vein also. So what type of blood flows in pulmonary vein? Yes, Priyanka? Like about the arteries, we know oxygenated blood flows. But in pulmonary artery, opposite. Basically, deoxygenated blood flows. And in veins, impure or deoxygenated blood flows. But in the pulmonary vein,
Oxygenated,
oxygenated or pure blood flows in this. Very good. Okay. Also tell me, this pulmonary artery carries bloods from where to where? Pulmonary artery carries the deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs or lungs to the heart?
heart to lungs,
Heart to lungs. Very good. And which vein brings oxygenated blood from the heart, from the lungs to the heart?
pulmonary vein,
From the lungs to the heart, it's the pulmonary vein. Very good. So that brings oxygenated blood. Good. You have been able to recall the things. That is good. Then we learned about transportation in case of plants. There are two special tissues. One is the xylem that transports water, while phloem is responsible for transporting food. Okay. Also, there's a process of transpiration that occurs in the plants. That is basically evaporation of water occurring from the surfaces of the leaf. And that evaporation of water is responsible for the upward movement, continuous upward movement of water from the roots to the shoot system. So transpiration helps in water movement, and also all the essential nutrients that are dissolved in the water now, it also gets traveled to the different parts of the plant due to transpiration. Because transpiration is nothing but basically loss of water in the form of water vapor, no? Through the stomata, water is being lost in the form of water vapor. And this creates an upward pull, right? There is
Yes,
less
sir.
amount of water here, there's more amount of water in the soil. So this creates a pressure difference, and the continuous evaporation is creating an upward pull, because of which water continuously rises up from roots to the different parts of the plant. So we learned about these things. Then we had this chapter reproduction in plants also, where we learned that, okay, tell me which is the reproductive organ of the flower. Sorry, which is the reproductive organ of the plant, I mean to say. I think I already said
Flower.
the answer. It's the flower. What are the two parts of the flower?
Um,
A flower has got two parts, no?
stamen.
Hmm. Pistil and the stamen.
Stamen.
Good. Okay. So then tell me that pistil is having how many parts? Pistil is the male or the female part?
One. Female part.
Female part. So pistil is made up of, yeah, pistil is made up of what? Stigma, style, and ovary, no? Right?
Yes, sir.
That was being called as stigma. This was being called as style, and this was being called as ovary. So that is pistil. And what about the stamen? It's made up of two parts. What do we call that? Let me give you a hint. This part of the stamen contains pollen grain.
Sir, repeat your question.
What is this part of the stamen called as? Stamen is made
Pollen
up of two
grains.
parts, no? This contains pollen grain. But what do we call this part? It starts with A.
Anther.
And good. And this one, that is filament. Okay, now? So anther and filament. Okay, so we have learned
Is
about
there
it.
different name is there?
Repeat again.
In filament there is different name.
Different name.
Yeah.
No, it does not have any other name. It's called as
Okay.
filament only. Okay. So reproduction in plants occurs in two ways. One is the asexual reproduction, another is the sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, we have learned by budding, new plants can grow; by fragmentation, by spore formation, and by vegetative propagation, new plants can grow. Okay. Then in sexual reproduction, we learned about that flowers are involved and there is pollination, where there will be transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, either on the same plant or either on the different plant but of the same species. So due to pollination, fertilization will be occurring further, where the male and the female gametes will fuse together. Okay, no? And later on, fruits and seeds formation takes place. So this fertilization leads to formation of seeds and fruit. And after the fruits are formed, after the fruits ripen, so thereby the seeds are dispersed. Okay, no? It can be dispersed by air, by insect, by water, etc. In some of the cases, we learned that the seeds burst open also. So such things we learned in biology particularly. Okay. Then we had the physics section. Okay, in the physics section, we particularly learned about motion and time, where we learned about types of motion, how do we measure time and the speed, and how do we use the graphs to represent different type of motion. All right, how do we use graphs to represent different types of motion? And we also had the heat chapter, where we learned like what is heat, how does the heat travel from one place to another, what are the different modes, different ways in which heat can travel from one place to another. All right. So heat, we know it's a form of energy, right? It's a form of energy basically. Then We learned about temperature, that basically measures how cold and how hot an object is. So temperature helps us determine whether the given object is cold or hot. Then we have equipments like thermometers that helps us to measure temperature. Either we can measure that in Celsius or in Fahrenheit scale. These things we have learned. We also have learned that there are different type of thermometers also. Like we have the clinical thermometers where they are, laboratory thermometers where they are, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Then we have the maximum and minimum thermometer. Remember, maximum and minimum thermometer that is used in weather forecasting. Tell me, out of the
Yes.
clinical thermometer and the laboratory thermometer, which one of them does not have a kink?
Laboratory thermometer.
Exactly, this one does not have a kink, and the purpose of the kink is to stop mercury from flowing back into the bulb, right? Good. Then
Yes.
heat can travel from one body to another via three different modes. One is conduction that occurs in the solid. Then we have convection that occurs in liquids and gases. And via radiation, heat can travel through vacuum or in air also. These things we learned. Okay. Then we had the chapter motion and time. In the chapter motion and time, we learned about different types of motion. They are circular motion, they are periodic motion, they are rotatory motion, linear motion, oscillatory motion. So we learned about different types of motion. We defined them as well. Further, we had uniform and non-uniform motion also. In uniform motion, we learned that if a body is moving with a constant speed, so it will travel equal distances in equal interval of time, right? And we when we draw the graph for it, it gives a straight line graph, right? Now, the time and distance graph for a body moving with a constant speed gives you a uniform motion graph where the slope is a straight line, right, Priyanka? Then, in the case of non uniform motion, we have learned that unequal distances are traveled in equal interval. Like, suppose in the first hour of the journey, a car traveled a distance of 20 kilometer, and in another hour of the journey, the same car traveled a distance of, let's say, 36 kilometer. So, unequal distances are being traveled in equal interval of time. So, that is the case of non uniform motion. When we drew the graph for this, so we obtained a curved line graph for this where the slope was curved. That means that the body is moving with a non-uniform speed. Also, we have learned about different formulas. In order to calculate speed, we basically divide distance upon time. Same formula can be used to find time or distance also. Then we have learned how we can measure the time. So earlier it was used by some traditional tools like water clocks were used, sundials were used, uh, etc. So we have got different types of clocks, like digital clocks are there, analog clocks are there. We have learned about that. Then we learned about the SI unit of the time, that is second. We learned about the conversion of the time from one unit to another also. So these things we have discussed in this chapter, motion and time. Then we had the chapter electric current and its effect, where we learned about electric circuits, about conductors and insulators. What is the effect of current? Like it has the heating effect, it has the magnetic effect. What are the different electrical equipments like switches, fuses, MCBs, etc., which we learned, right? Priyanka, can you define to me what is electricity in simple words? Yeah. Yes, Priyanka, what is electricity? Yeah.
Sir,
What is electricity? Define it in simple words.
sir, electricity is a continuous process path. Uh, electric consisting components such as switch, bulb, electric cells, switch,
Okay.
and wires.
Okay, that is electric circuit. Okay, I'm saying about electricity. Electricity is simply the flow of charged particles called as electrons, right? Electricity is the flow of charged particles called as electrons. Previously, we were defining about electric circuit. That is also correct. It's the closed,
Sorry, sir.
no worries. It's the closed pathway in which electricity flows, and it contains various electrical components, as you mentioned. Good. So it could be cell, bulb, switches, wires, etc. Now, there are two effects. There are three effects, but we have learned about two effects of electric current, particularly. In this eighth grade, we'll be learning about the chemical effect also. We learned about heating effect, that when electric current passes through conductors, so it gives out heat also. So we have applications like in the electric heaters, particularly like in the room heaters, in the water geysers, the heating effect is used. In magnetic effect, we have learned when electric current flows through a given wire, and when we place a magnet near it, so thereby the needle of the magnet starts to deflect. So thereby it means that there must be some magnetism produced around this wire. No? That's why the magnetic needle is moving, because a magnetic substance moves only when it is placed near another magnetic object or an iron, cobalt, or nickel object. So we learned about the magnetic effect, and it forms the basis for electromagnets. Okay. Then we have learned about the safety devices like fuses, like MCBs, that helps protect the damage, that helps to protect short circuit. Right? What is the full form of MCB?
Miniature circuit breaker.
Breaker. Very good. Okay. And it is better than the fuse because it can be reused. Right now. Then we have learned about the chapter acid, bases, and salt. Right. Various things we learned in that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, like we have learned about what is acid, what is base, hmm, what are their properties. We have learned about the neutralization reaction in this, about the pH value, what are the different type of indicators that is used, right? So, acids, we have learned that are the substances that taste sour, that turns the blue litmus paper into red, right? And about the bases, we learned that these are the substances that taste bitter and they turn the red litmus paper into blue. Okay, these things we have learned. We also have learned about the salt, also that salts are formed by the reaction of an acid and a base. Okay, now whenever an acid and a base reacts, or salt is formed. Now, if you were to take a look at the pH value of the acids, so acids generally have a pH value less than 7. Their pH value is less than 7. As for the base, their pH value is more than 7. pH scale, it's a scale that has numbering from 0 till 14. In the middle, you have got 7. So, any substance having a pH value less than 7, it is acidic. Any substance having a pH value 7, that is neutral, neither acidic nor basic. And having a pH value more than 7, that means it is basic in nature. Got it, Priyanka?
Yes, sir.
Okay, these things we discussed. Then we learned about the neutralization reaction, in which we learned that a reaction between an acid and a base that gives you salt and water. It is a neutralization reaction. It is a neutralization reaction. Why called so? Because salt, that is the main product here, is neither acidic nor basic in nature. We learned about this. We learned about applications. We learned about various applications of neutralization reaction in our daily life. No? Like when people suffer from indigestion, so they take antacids. Now, can you give an example of antacid? Yes. Remember, like we learned, if you can recall that blue container, like blue bottle, that was an antacid. It had written milk of magnesia on it. Remember, Priyanka? So milk of magnesia is one of the common antacid. What is the chemical name of milk of magnesia? That is Completed.
Magnesium oxide.
Hydroxide.
Yes, sir.
So magnesium hydroxide is basically milk of magnesia. It is an antacid that is taken when we suffer from acidity, from indigestion. Okay. Then we also use the toothpaste also, right now. So toothpaste also contains antacids in them, right? It also contains bases in them. So it prevents the tooth decay, right now, because when we eat food and when the food particle gets stuck into the gap between the teeth, so bacteria eat upon that food particles, and while they eat, while they break down the food particles, in the process of doing so they releases acidic substances which can lead to tooth decay, and that tooth decay does not happens when we use toothpaste. Okay, no? Also, in order to regulate the soil's pH level, also neutralization reaction is carried out. We know that if the soil is too much acidic, right, the plants cannot grow properly in it. No, if the pH level of the soil is less than 7, it means soil is too acidic. When does the plant grow well in the soil, Priyanka? When does the plant grow well in the soil? If it is its pH level is 7 or less than 7 or more than 7.
Sir,
Mhm. When the pH level of the soil is 7, then the plant grows properly in it. Got it, Priyanka? So suppose if the soil has turned acidic in nature, so we need to neutralize it now.
yes, sir.
So
We
how do
should
we do?
treat it
Mhm.
with base, right?
Exactly. We need to add basic substances in it. So what the farmers will do, they will add basic
Quick
substances
lime.
like quick lime. Very good. There you go. Quick lime, right now. So quick lime
Yes,
is added. But suppose if the soil has turned very basic in nature, okay, so we need to restore its pH level back to 7. So how can we do so? By adding acidic substances or the substances
yes,
that will release acids. So there we add manures now, right? Because when manures dissolves, when manures further break down into the soil, they releases acids. That is the thing. Also, when like if sometime we are bitten by the bees, the bee stings releases the acidic venom now. So by rubbing the baking soda over that area where we have been stung, it can provide us a relief because it will react with the acidic venom of the bee, right now. So that is the thing. So there are many places where as neutralization reaction is used. Then we learned about the different type of indicators like litmus paper, phenolphthalein, turmeric. Uh, Apart from these, we have learned there are olfactory indicators also, like clove oil. hmm, you have the onion extract, vanilla extract, that can also be used to check whether the substance is acidic or basic in nature. These things we have learned. You're getting it so far, right? These things we already learned. And in the chapter physical and chemical changes, what things we have learned about the physical changes? Remember, we learned that in a physical change, whenever a physical change occurs, so there is a change in the physical property of that substance, like it could be change in the shape, in the size, or it could be change in the state of matter, or sometimes also change in the color of the object. So a change in which the physical properties of the substance is changing, that is called as physical change. No new substance is formed, and in most of the cases the physical changes are reversible. Got it? Then we have learned about chemical changes in which new substances are formed because the chemical composition of the substance has changed. Suppose earlier it was a paper, after burning, it has turned into ashes. So, ash has got a completely new property, new chemical composition. Getting it? Then we have the example of rusting of iron. When the iron rust, so thereby rust is having completely new chemical composition. What has happened? Iron, it has reacted with the oxygen. with the water present in the damp air to form iron oxide. And what is iron oxide? It is basically rust, no? Yes, it's basically rust. So in the chemical changes, a new substance with new chemical composition is formed. So that's the case. And in most of the cases, chemical changes are irreversible. Can you give can you give a special example where both physical and chemical changes are observed simultaneously? Yes, Umar, how are you? Umar, are you in this class? Like,
No, sir, I'm waiting for my another class.
okay, okay. Yes, Priyanka, can you give an example of a change where both physical and chemical changes? Can you give an example where both the changes are observed simultaneously? I'm audible to you, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Haven't we learned about the burning of the candle, right? Where the melting of the wax is an example of physical change, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
When there's a change in the state of an object, so that is taken as a physical change, taken as a physical change. And the wax is turning into wax vapor. It is burning. So that was the chemical change. Those things we have learned. Then we did learned about the light chapter also. So try to recall what are the things we have learned. Yeah, in the light chapter, what we learned?
Sir,
Mhm. We learned like what is light. So we learned light is a form of energy, right? That enables us to see the world around us. That gives us the sensation of vision. What are some of the properties of light, Priyanka? Can you tell me some of the properties? Yes,
yeah.
I guess I need to turn my camera off. Like only then maybe your network would be stable. Okay, so I was asking about you regarding light. That what are the properties of light? Yes, we learned that light travels in a straight line,
Yes, sir.
right? So basically, that phenomena is called
Reflection.
as reflection, also, right? And when light travels in a straight line, that phenomenon is called as rectilinear propagation of light. No,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
And reflection you have mentioned, and refraction also when light bends. No, when it enters into a new medium, then it bends. As you can
Yes,
remember
sir.
the example, like if you have a glass of water and you were to put a pencil or a pen or a straw in it, it will appear as if it is bent like this, right? No, so that is
Yes, sir.
refraction. Then we have learned about reflection particularly. So when a beam of light strikes a smooth surface, so thereby it gets bounced back into the same medium from where it was coming. So that is called as reflection. And reflection is of two types. One is the regular reflection, where all the incident rays of light reflects back parallelly. All the incident rays of light, they get reflected as parallel beam of light. So that is regular deflection. But if it is a irregular surface, a uneven surface like this, so although all the rays of light are hitting it parallel to one another, but after hitting it, they are going to get reflected into random directions like this, getting it? So that is the case of irregular reflection. Then there were two main laws of reflection. First, we learned that the angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. If this is the plane mirror, okay, say that this is the angle, this is the incident ray, and that is the reflected ray. In between that, we draw an imaginary line which is perpendicular to the surface of the mirror. This is the mirror here, and this is the normal that is drawn perpendicular to the surface of the mirror here. And there's an angle called as angle I formed between the normal and the incident ray, and then we have the reflected angle of reflection basically. So angle I is always angle equal to angle R. If this is suppose 35 degrees, so that is also going to be 35 degrees. This is also same. So these two angles are equal to one another. We learned about these things. We have one more law that is stated that the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal all lies in the same plane, or lies in the same plane. Further, we learned how the plane mirror forms an image. So the nature of the image formed by the plane mirror is that it always forms a virtual image because the rays of light are not actually meeting at a point. In the case of virtual image, we know that it is formed when the rays of light only appears to be meeting at a point after reflection. Then the image is always erect, like it is not upside down, it is not inverted, it is always upside. Then it is of the same size. These things we have learned about the plane mirror. All right. These things which we discuss in the light chapter generally. So that was it. I have tried to just give you a general, like we have tried to revise the topics in a very short and concise way. Okay. Now let's do some questions from these different things we have discussed. So from the chapter nutrition in plants, you answer one question to me, that what is the differences between parasitic, saprophytic plant, parasitic and the saprophytic plant?
Sir,
Mm-hmm. Yes, Stringa. Parasitic
sir,
plants and yeah.
parasitic
Mhm.
plants, they depend on others, right?
Yeah, they depend on other organisms for nutrition, on other
Yes.
plants for nutrition. Give one example.
Um, Cuscata,
Cascata, good. And saprophytic?
so they decay, right? They can decay.
Not they can decay, but they obtain nutrition from decaying organisms,
Yes, sir.
like rotten wood, right? From that we obtain. Okay, and then give few answer few more questions. Like you tell me, what is the mode of nutrition in fungi? Mode of nutrition in fungi. Is it autotrophic, heterotrophic, saprophytic, or parasitic? Fungi. So fungi is also having a saprophytic mode of nutrition, right? They feed upon decaying things, decaying organic matter. Okay. Okay, tell me, Out of these objects here, plastic, rubber, copper, or wood, which one of them is a good conductor of electricity? Which one of these is the good conductor of electricity out of plastic, rubber, copper, and wood?
Copper.
Copper. Pollination is the transfer of pollen from where to where? Pollination is the transfer of pollen from where to where? Is it from ovary to stigma, anther to stigma, anther to ovule, or stigma to anther?
And that stigma.
Good. Anther to stigma. Okay. Now from the chapter electricity, explain to me if you have to break or complete an electric circuit, you need to break or complete an electric circuit. So what is the device you are going to use? In order to complete or break an electric circuit, which device should we use? Is it bulb, a switch, a battery, or a wire? In order to complete the circuit or break it, meaning that to either allow the flow of current or stop the flow of current, which device do we use? Priyanka, am I not audible to you?
Sir,
It's basically switch now.
so
Switch
can you
is used.
repeat again?
The question was, like I already answered it. So basically, let me repeat question. The question was which device is used to break the circuit or complete the circuit? So that is simply switch. Okay. Okay. Tell me what are the um, tell me what are the different ways, or just answer this question. What is heating effect of electric current, and what are some of its application?
The heating effect of
Electric current.
like you want me to define it?
Yeah, you have to define it.
Okay. So like
Yes, Priyanka. Basically, what happens when electric current passes through a conducting material? So it gives out heat now.
yes, sir. The
That
heat is produced.
where do we use this? Where do we use this? In which electronic devices do we use heating effect of electric current?
Toasters,
Hmm. Toasters
iron
and
box,
hmm.
and oven.
Oven. Good.